Hey guys, happy Wine Wednesday. We are live. We are chatting intersection wines. We're chatting Merlot, South Okanagan Merlot, some of the very best, Marsanne, some of the best Marsanne. So stay tuned. Hey, happy Wine Wednesday. It's just me. Carl got held up at a dentist appointment, but he will be back any second. Not for him, because otherwise I don't think he'd be able to taste wine after, but one of the kids. So here we are. But it's so nice to see y'all. Happy Wine Wednesday. Happy Wine Wednesday for everyone that was on withdrawal of nightly wine lives, because we went live every night there for almost 3 weeks almost there. So, hey, Mike, great to see you. Woohoo. Yes. So we are going to something called Free the Grapes Conference. We're actually leaving next week. And guess what? We're going to be passing through LA next Saturday. And look what happened in LA. Have you guys seen what happened in LA? It is crazy. Like, oh my gosh. I couldn't believe it. It's the worst fire that they have probably ever had in modern LA history. So I don't know if we'll still be able to go to this conference because I would hate to get in the way of all the recovery efforts. But yeah, it's very sad, horrible. And I think it happened overnight. It was a hurricane type of force wind came in overnight and pushed the fires around and flamed the fires. And oh, it's really horrible. It's unbelievable. Actually, I still can't believe that's happening. So, yeah, very sad. But there you have it. We're going to chat about wine because wine is way less stressful than that. It's way more fun than that. We have Mel Smits from Intersection, winemaker at Intersection Winery, joining us in a little bit. And even Carl Boucher himself is joining us. Woohoo! Hey, Carl. He's just walked through the door. How was the dentist?
Bad.
Oh, yeah, the dentist. Tracy, Jim, great to see you guys. Daryl, hey, Sandy. So there you have it. Very sad day in LA, but we're gonna try our best to relax and take care of ourselves, because I had a rough day too. So yeah, let's have a little wine and let's chat wine. Carl Boucher. Woo! There you are. Oh, wow. 85% of flights made it in and out of LAX. Wow. That's impressive.
There you go. I'm here.
You made it. Super daddy.
I made it. Thanks for setting up the whole thing. Canadian wine lovers, Carl's Wine Club members, welcome. Ooh. Great to see y'all. Un beau bonjour à tout le monde en français. Un gros merci de vous joindre à nous. Cette semaine, c'est notre première semaine de l'année. On présente les vins d'intersection, des vins riches, des vins puissants du sud de l'Okanagan, et on reçoit Mel Smits, qui est la winemaker à Intersection. On a présenté Intersection 2 fois déjà dans l'histoire du club. C'est pour la 3e fois. Third or second time here, huh? Third, right? Third time in the club, right?
It's the third time we featured Intersection. Yeah. It's been a while. It's been a while since we did that. And
I know, get some of that in your glass?
Well, I got to come get some. It's what, the 4th day open now? 5th day?
5th day.
Wow.
Yeah. I saved the bottom for you. Okay.
Thank you.
2014 Axiom. I cannot wait to talk to Mel about it. We've been digging on that for 4 days, Mira and I. We're at the bottom of the bottle. This wine is a freaking rock star. It is amazing. And another rock star wine is this one, the Alluvia 21. Oh, man, I like that. Speaking about dentist.
Yeah, I don't know that's good for you. Carl has this new habit of opening the bottles with his teeth. I don't know.
I mean,
You're from
2000,
Alberta, clearly.
2,000 here, 3,000 there, right? Well, at the end of the day, it's just yeah, there you go. Leslie, good evening, my dear. The average wine enthusiast, good evening to you as well. This is such an amazing, we're starting the year with a bang. We are definitely starting the year with a bang with this feature. I mean, $157 for 6 bottles of premium South Okanagan wine. I had to search for 2 years.
Tax holiday, that's 173. So yeah,
I know, but darn it, like the quality of these wines, like the milepost for $25. Like, I mean, like we were talking about it last week that we can't find, like it's rare and it's hard to find value red wines, and I mean we got another one there, but yeah, awesome.
See, that's what we needed. We need you to come in here, open a bottle with your teeth.
Damn.
Okay, damn. I'm not going to make you blind taste this wine for a long time. I just want you to smell it and tell me what you think. If you know what it is.
The white that was upstairs?
Yeah. Because Mel from Intersection, the winemaker at Intersection, is actually now in the green room. So I'd love to bring her on. But so we'll have to finish your blind tasting after. But your first initial reaction.
It's like sweet lemon.
Okay.
Sweet candied lemon. It doesn't scream a varietal that I know on top of my finger, though. It's not like
not a super common one, but your big hint that it's one that we might talk to Mel about.
You talk too much. I know exactly what's in my fridge. This is the Marsanne from the Roussanne from Church and State.
Nope.
No? Okay.
That would be chilled, because that is in our chill.
That's true. That's true. Oh, you're good. You're good. Yeah, this is good. This is interesting.
Okay. Well, your last one, and then we'll bring Mel on. Yeah.
You know what? I know what it is. I just got a burst of spice and some flour in there, and there's a richness like honeysuckle and sweet lemon. I would say this is Viognier.
You got it.
Yeah.
Viognier. Yeah. All right. So your last hint is that it's not from BC.
Okay. Huh. Not from BC. So that means it's from Ontario. It's definitely not Viognier from Nova Scotia. So
you got it. So if you don't know, we'll chat about it after. But let's bring Mel on, because Daryl he likes Merlot. He loves Merlot. I love Merlot. He's already asking about the silica alluvia. How are the acids? So we need to know. So we need to bring Mel on. Bring
Mel on, but I can start to talk to Daryl about the acid. And I mentioned it in my tasting notes. I mean, especially the alluvia, the acids are somehow like bursting all of the alluvia. The silica is a little rounder, a little bit more weighty, not as apparent, but the alluvia, I would say, the acids are absolutely sustaining the 15-2. Absolutely no doubt about that.
No,
how's it going?
Hi, how are you? Happy New Year.
Good. Great to see you. Great to see you, my dear. Thanks for joining us. It's Wednesday. It's 5:20 to 8:20 Eastern time. Welcome. It's Intersection Week. We're having a good start of the year, my dear. I think people are ordering Intersection. They're excited. We're getting a bunch of comments, a bunch of questions on our email this week. So glad to have you. That's great to see you, Mel.
Yeah, excellent. I've actually brought home our Marsanne, and that's what I'm starting with today.
Nice.
So
that wine was so cool. I so enjoyed it. I mean, let's start from the beginning, Mel, okay? Because we'll talk about the whole portfolio. We'll talk about the 9 wines we have on feature. But before we start, let's start about you. Let's talk about your background a little bit. I would like to introduce you because you've been the winemaker at Intersection for quite a while now. And not only the winemaker, but also the vineyard manager. So you're taking care of, you're a real vintner, you're a real vigneron, like we'd say in French. So when did you join Intersection, first and foremost? And prior to that, how did you get there?
So I came on to Intersection in 2016. Before that, I had worked in BC for a couple of years already. After bouncing around and doing harvests in the Southern Hemisphere, I found a job at Burwell working in their vineyard, and I did that for 2 years. And then the job at Intersection opened up, which combined a bunch of, basically lab and cellar and vineyard and all kinds of new things for me to learn as well. So I got my start in Ontario. I went to the Niagara College, the 2-year program, which has the co-op. Back in 2006, I started that. So basically, I did my co-op at the college in the winery. Before it was the big building, it was the barn still. And then after that, I worked in the industry in Ontario. I worked at Henry Pelham for a few years in the lab.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, so at Henry of Pelham, who was the head winemaker there when you were there?
Ron Giesbrecht was.
Ron Giesbrecht.
Yeah,
so now he has Wending home now. He opened his own winery a couple of years ago. We had the chance to spend time with him at his new winery last summer with a few of our members. So you work with Ron. That is really, really cool.
Yeah, Ron and Sandrine taught me so much early on about lab, but also we did a lot of bottling and disgorging work. So a lot of quality control and certain processes. I got to learn a lot there. So so after a while, I kind of wanted to stretch out a bit and start to get into other areas, because I was doing some minor cellar things, but I wanted more cellar time. So I applied and did traveling harvests basically in Australia and New Zealand.
Okay.
So
and what about in Australia? Did you do Hunter Valley? Did you do McLaren Vale? Where did you go?
My first vintage in Australia was in Tasmania.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was at a place called Piper's Brook, which does a broad variety of wines, but a lot of sparkling. And because originally I set out to do sparkling and aromatic whites, my focus before coming to British Columbia was really more on Riesling and aromatic stuff and Pinot and Chard. And then I moved to the Okanagan and make a ton of Merlot and red white. So, but we still have the Riesling, so that's really a nice bit of home that I feel like I've brought to our style. So yeah.
So you did Australia, you did New Zealand. Where about in New Zealand did you work more Central Otago or Martinborough or Marlborough? Where did you go in New Zealand?
So in New Zealand, I was at a winery called Framingham in Marlborough. But they made Sauvignon Blanc, but their focus was on Rieslings too. And a variety of sweetness, some botrytis affection too. So there was, they had an Auslese that they could hardly keep on the shelves because it was a really, really popular wine. So yeah, a lot of Riesling, some Pinot Gris, some, Pinot Noir as well. But the Riesling was the focus there. They had every style from dry to dessert. So
that's awesome. So
sorry, go ahead.
No, you finish. I don't want to cut you off.
No, between the two, I worked at Dimension Dawn in Healesville. So I was in Victoria in Australia. So I did Tasmania first, came back, did one last crush at Henry Pelham. And then I went back down to, basically Victoria, which is in, sort of southeastern Australia. So yeah, it's kind of a cooler area. And sparkling and Pinot and Chard do really well there, as well as some Dynamite Syrah. So yeah, I like to tour in Mornington and all of these cooler climate areas. So I didn't really work any hot vintages, but it was still really warm when I started. So, but yeah, then Framingham, the job came up, and then I finished the contract at Framingham, and my original intention was to travel a bit. but yeah, like basically I needed to get back to work pretty quick, and then the vineyard job opened up at Burring Owl. So
That's awesome. So you flew back to BC. You spent a couple of years at Burring Owl in the vineyard, mostly at Burring Owl, correct?
yep, I basically managed their vineyard crew. They brought in a team of Mexican guys from pruning all the way to harvest, and there was an overlap, in the middle. So we had a big team, and I was part of that. Just learning the row by row work, a lot of things that I picked up there. I think a job like intersection actually needed a foundation like what I got from working there, because I learned a lot in a very short period of time, including some usable Spanish and a lot about vine care, everything from planting to trellis and shoot thinning and pruning and tying and all these things that you go through your whole year. So the vineyard side of that was really important. So yeah,
absolutely, because like they say, as a vigneron, as a vintner, everything starts in the vineyard, and I think that's what you brought to Intersection, that everything starts in the vineyard and your work start there and it finishes in the winemaking facility, correct? That's your philosophy?
Yeah, the idea is to set it up so I don't have to do as much inside to correct things. And I want to work with our own fruit. So, I mean, a lot of people know about BC's winter issues in the last couple of years. We've retained some material from the bottom of the plant to tie down. So I anticipate that if all goes well, we should be able to get our own fruit again in the coming year in 2025. And it won't be a full tonnage probably until the vines fully recover. But yeah, we have a plan to bring in our own stuff. Luckily, we have a nice long aging curve for our wines, so we're only moving into 2021s, which are in the pack. 2021 whites, we're basically like into these now. We're going to be hitting 2022s pretty soon, but 2022s, like we're still, they're still very young. So the nice thing is we have some time with these wines. 2022 is a really big vintage. It's going to keep us going for a while.
That's awesome. So there's a few things that I want to touch base, because first and foremost, I want to talk about the 2021 vintage, because 2021 is a controversial vintage in the sense that it's the famous heat dome. There is some wildfire sparse over the valley, so there's some good stuff to talk about there. But before, I have one of our Ontario wine lover here, the Average Wine Enthusiast, who has a really cool YouTube channel, by the way. You should take a look at that. He's awesome. Yeah, so Mike, the Average Wine Enthusiast, is saying 2022, well, to jump on having your crop coming back in 2025, it's really optimistic. Is it really, looking at your vineyard right now after what happened, happened with the frost, is 2025 is really like, we're looking at what, a 30-50% crop, 60% crop, depending if Mother Nature obviously provides you with a decent winter and not again another cold spam, but is 50% is a good outcome, would be a good outcome for your vineyard?
50 would be really good. I think it's probably going to be closer to the 30-ish mark. And it really depends on, we don't really have a whole lot of total vine loss. What I have are mostly like retrained suckers. So I have, what I have are signs of life, right? But setting all of this up happened way before we were talking about frost. Like I ran nutrition and water in the vineyard all year, trying to push this growth so it was nice and healthy and stable. And then encouraging it to get into dormancy maybe a little earlier than usual, but it didn't have a crop on it. So, the plants kind of shut down and get ready for the winter. And I wanted that to happen kind of early so that they're nice and hardened off. And, if we got a sudden drop in December, it wouldn't be super vulnerable. So we started actually like planning a nutrition, program in May, anticipating that this is going to lead us into a spring where we get these things rolling right away and they're ready and they're set up for a good year. So nutrition was a big thing for us. Lots and lots of watering. I didn't do as much weed control because I want to have something insulating just in case we need to rely on those low buds again. Yeah. So yeah, like it looks a little shaggy out there and there's a lot of suckers and a lot of things that usually we take off the bottom of the plant. It doesn't look very pretty, but it's going to be very functional. So
okay, well, that's a big, Yeah, that's a very, very good point about the nutrition all the way leading up. So you prep the whole 2024
Yeah.
growing season was for you to lead up to 2025, to do as much as you can in 2024 to
Yep.
get your vineyard healthy. So not too much depth. So you're what, under 20% of vine depth?
Well under, yeah. I
Oh, that's
mean,
awesome.
I was doing vine counts in Riesling for dead plants, and I think in a row of about 170 plants, those are some of the longer rows on our property. I maybe had like anywhere between 5 and 12 vines, like maybe
Oh, wow.
it's not even one per panel in some spots. There's other varieties that are more sensitive. Things like Viognier and Marsanne and Merlot are going to be more sensitive anyway. That's just a normal thing in Canadian viticulture. So vine replacement is not unusual.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, cold spells also, you know, create extra virus pressure and disease pressure. So you got to watch for that. So trying to set things up so that they're healthy is one good way to try to prevent things like that from hurting the vines longer term. But a bud starts forming like inside the leaf, like right inside that little pocket there, pretty much right away. So as soon as that bud starts forming, it starts storing information for how much fruit's going to be put off the following year.
Fascinating. This is
Yeah.
fascinating. I love that. So now, hey, you have a visitor behind you.
Yeah.
So now let's talk about our winter, because it's already first week that we're finishing our first week of January. For the outsider, we can say in BC we haven't had cold yet. A few snow here and there. Even for me in Summerland, I'm in Trout Creek. I have basically didn't see any snow yet. So is it good to have a warm winter, or you would have prefer for the vineyard? Would you have prefer something a little colder to prep the vines in case of, or it's just a perfect scenario right now?
I mean, I wish it was a little cooler right now, because then if we get a steep drop, it should be like lowering gradually into that, rather than like sharply declining. Because if it goes from +2 or 3 down to -20, that's pretty hard on the plant. Any plant, it can be Cab Franc, Riesling, Pinot. It's all gonna, that is where you start seeing the lethal temperature there for the buds. So it's a time of exposure, but also that severity, I think, is a big factor. So when people go around and start doing bud dissections, usually they're doing it after these big events. So not having had a steep drop yet is not the worst thing in the world, but I think as we get into the end of January, early February, we could see some pretty severe temperature drops. I'm hoping that it doesn't hit as hard as it did in 2024. That winter, where basically like we had a little spell of positives, and then it just hit like this Arctic kind of freeze, and then we were recording temperatures of anywhere between -22 and -26 on a site. So yeah, we have frost fans. We have a couple of small frost fans that can cover a certain amount of acreage. So they're maintained, and you know, basically if the temperature hits a certain amount, they're set to automatically come on and just start moving air in the vineyard. So yeah, it's one of the most common ways we can mitigate here, because we don't really do any hilling. Now people are testing out things like geotextiles, which are good.
I've heard about that, especially in Prince Edward County. Now we have some people now covering the whole thing with geotextile right now. So yeah, okay. So before we talk about the 2021 vintage, I want to talk about the estate vineyard. So you guys have 10 acres of estate vineyard, correct?
Yep, I think total is 10.5 planted, and then the buildings. So yeah.
So
mostly, nice little site.
Tiny little site, especially from Ontario, like compared to the size of the farm in Niagara and Ontario. But so mostly your focus at intersection, for people who are listening to us for the first time, it's Merlot. So I think the big focus is Merlot, big, bold, juicy reds. There you go. That's the plan. But also Roussanne, Marsanne, Viognier, and Riesling. That's what you guys have on your estate.
We don't have Roussanne yet. I would be curious to try some, but I think as we're bringing back the vineyard, we're not going to go too far out of our wheelhouse. Roussanne is something I want to play with. So far, we've done the other two Rhone, like popular varieties, I guess. So Viognier is currently about 1.7 acres
Okay.
on our site, because I took out a tiny little bit to plant some Pinot last year. And then I have about a total combined half acre of Marsanne, which actually did pretty well. It was one of 2 blocks that had top growth in 2024, which I was very surprised about, because Marsanne usually I think would get knocked pretty hard and have trouble coming back. But there was full, like, not really fruit bearing shoots, but there's full top growth, and I might still have to renew from lower than the cordon, but you know, I'm surprised. I'm happy it's still doing well, at least in this one section in particular. I want to take cuttings of this vine and try to grow more of our own Marsanne. So we can kind of like take these nice strong plants and propagate those ones. I think that's going to be like, it's our custom one that can handle it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you also have a good focus on Riesling as well. You have what, 3 acres of Riesling on the property?
The Riesling's just about 2 acres.
2 acres. Okay.
Yeah. So
And the
comfortably.
Rieslings are down below the road. You're closer to the road with the Riesling, right?
Yeah, we're not on like a very steep hillside, but it is a grade down slightly towards the highway. So the Riesling is actually like at the lowest point there. So we get some nice airflow, but then we also get this cooling influence. You know, we maintain some acidity on all of our fruit because we're on this like lower slope and this kind of flatter area. We're on a toe slope that gets shade in the afternoon too.
And
So,
it gives you what, 6 acre of Merlot?
just about, yeah. We're
Just
like
about
5.5.
6 acre of Merlot.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then there's a little bit of Cab Franc as well.
A little bit of Cab Franc.
Yeah.
So the only thing that you outsource is the Cab Sauv.
The Cab Sauv, yeah. Currently, I've tried planting a couple times. I've tried planting. One of them was in 2022 before we got a frost, and the other one was in 2023 before we got a frost. So we're gonna have to see if any of it's still gonna kick off in the spring. Cab Sauv might be one of the ones we shelve for a little bit until we get full recovery in the vines.
Yeah.
So the goal is to make all of our own, like get all of our own source fruit for the Axiom ourselves. But in the meantime, people that produce really nice cabs, if I can ever get like a ton or 2 of each of the 2 cabs, then that's the source for the Axiom.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. So let's get to my point of the 2021 vintage.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been tasting some awesome stuff for the 2021 vintage. I think the wrap out there was more about the wildfire. There was smoke pocket. I mean, none of what we're seeing here have smoke influence in the whole lineup. I haven't seen that. I have detected anything of that. The wines are clean. And I think it also provides a different aspect of what you can expect. And when you get to Viognier and Marsanne, 2021 was not the worst thing in the world to have that big heat early on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the smoke taint, you can test for precursors for it. So you can send juice and fruit samples to a lab in Kelowna and have it tested to see how bad the precursors are. Because we've managed to nail down like a couple sets of aromas that are responsible for that, you know, profile. And you can kind of make a decision early on what to do with that fruit if it's really badly affected. So in 2021, I sampled our VO, our Merlot, and I think I sampled our Riesling. I just did like blanket samples, and I sent those off, and I had like low to like barely moderate amounts of those compounds. So like the nice thing is we now have some testing we can do, which I don't think was in place, you know, previously.
Not even 5 years ago. This is something very new. So
it's a very good.
Yeah, so you got the heat unit. So you had the heat unit to bring the Merlot at proper ripeness. I mean, it was a big vintage. You can see it with what we got. I mean, these are bold, these are robust, these are juicy, big reds. So how do you want to define 21 in the linearity of what you got between 2019, 20, 21, and 22?
Yeah, I would say 21, our most similar vintage to that is 2015. Because it was hot and dry, and there were local fires. There were fires in Oliver that year as well. And if you look back at our 2015s, you know, you kind of see a very similar, like big, you know, developed fruit, Not necessarily so much on the smoke side of things in any of our wines from white to red. Like if you look at our 15 Riesling or our 15 Viognier Marsanne, we even had a single varietal Viognier in that year that was done under screw cap, and it was fine too. So yeah, the heat was really the defining character. So that just meant that I didn't thin as heavily. I didn't drop I basically didn't drop any fruit at all in 2021. And we ended up with 40 very healthy tons, which is a very average yield for us. The one risk that we had is in this extreme heat, sometimes we can get sunburn on the Rhone whites.
Yeah.
The Marsanne in particular can be very sensitive to it, and that might create some bitterness. So sometimes on hotter years, if you have that sunburn, you might get like unusual flavors, and that might be part of it. So what I did instead of pulling off the leaves in the fruit zone, sometimes you'll see like where people strip all the leaves off in that area. I pulled little lateral shoots out for airflow and a little bit of sunlight, but I left the lower leaves on to kind of create a bit of shade.
There you go.
I did some, it's a little bit labor intensive thinning, but it's secondary shoots. I just pulled them off in the fruit zone to open it up so that they could still get sprays and things, but they didn't get full sunshine impact when we were, in these crazy like 40-degree days, 40 plus, which we had for a long time in 2021.
Oh yeah, almost 2 weeks straight. Like it was like 44, 45. I remember in the middle of that, I was living in West Kelowna and I had an appointment at Tinhorn Creek. I mean, like 2 minutes from intersection. It was 49.8 degrees when I got out the car on my, like, holy shit. And I spent like 2 hours in the air conditioning because there was traffic on the 97. So that was that kind of heat. So, I mean, now the high alcohol on the 21, we're talking like 15.4, 15.2, 15.5. Is it more vintage defining, or it's more of a house style for you in the reds?
Our Merlot can pretty much consistently get around 14.5 to 15. So 15 is actually pretty balanced given the year. If I had dropped fruit, it probably would have been in 16 and a half, which might have been a little high.
Okay, yeah. Without even drying the grapes, without the appassimento process.
No appassimento needed there, but yeah. So not only did I kind of have the benefit of a yield that I was comfortable with, which is about 4 tons an acre, I also retained the acidity from not dropping as much, and the sugars were a little bit more spread out. So sugar ripeness and flavor ripeness were a little bit more together.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And so, for the question for people who are asking, how about the acidity? The acidity is there to sustain. I know I definitely had no issue, especially with the alluvia, where I thought a nice burst of acidity was lifting the whole profile. So we can answer the members saying, no problem with the acid, even with the high alcohol level, right?
Yeah. If you want a number, a ballpark for a Merlot is usually between 5.8 to 6.2 or 3 grams per liter. So our pHs in the Okanagan tend to be in the high 3/8s for reds. And I think that's basically where our 21s are at, is around that balance. And they're dry. They're just completely below 0.5 gram residual because they're unfiltered. So they're very dry, and they're very I aim for alcohol and acidity balance too. So, in years like they're the polar opposite of 21, which was the following year, the 22, it's where it was higher acid and lower alcohol, and managing the acid became key, right? So yeah, I think with this one, the other thing about our site is because the sun kind of dips behind the bluff for us, so we get some shade in the afternoon. So we retain like this nice shift of day and nighttime temperatures still. Yeah, there's a vineyard. So that bluff, like sometimes the opposite hillside, like the Black Sage side, the North Oliver side of the other side of the valley, is facing the sun, and it's still baking in the sun. But we're kind of going to be in full shade at that point, like in the evenings. So 5 o'clock in the afternoon, Cab Sauv on the nice sandy bench across from us is still getting its rays, and we're pretty much just cooling down for the day. So
yeah, that's the Golden Mile there, just for you. That's the Golden Mile slope. You're just at the bottom of the little mountain. Let's say you're not facing the sun all afternoon and all evening. So okay, so that's great. Let's talk about what we have in the pack. Because with these 21s, there's the 2021. Well, there's the Mile Edge, the VO Marsanne, and also the Riesling. Let's start with the 3 white. Quickly, rapid fire. The Mile Edge. Is it something new that you have in your portfolio for people who purchased from us, let's say back in 22? Miles Edge was something fairly new, correct?
Miles Edge is actually our first white blend. So we did a Miles Edge from 2012 and onward. And prior to my being there, it was Sauvignon Blanc and Viognier.
Okay.
And then I didn't have a source for Sauvignon Blanc at a point, and our site isn't quite right for it either. I don't think. I would maybe try it, but we've kind of gone more Riesling dominant in the blend. So it's about half Riesling, and then the rest is made up of either Pinot Blanc and Viognier, or, well, actually, like so far, it's pretty much just been those 3. As long as like I've had a focus on it, and it really started like picking back up in 2020 because we were focusing on single varietals a lot before that. 2020 is where we got some Pinot Blanc, and we started playing with that as like the mid palate weight and the thing that offers us some nice like brightness to fruit. So it's stainless steel, and the residual sugar, the Riesling component, is kind of what determines the sugar of the blend in total. So wherever I stop the Riesling for that year is kind of how I make the blend for the Miles Edge. So I dial it in on the Miles Edge for a target sweetness that I like or a balance that I like. And that because the other 2 varieties in the blend are dry and they ferment dry. So when I start tinkering with blends, the sweetness level is pretty much determined by the Riesling, and so is the acidity to some extent. So.
Yeah, and the mid palate that gets like the Pinot Blanc, you get some spice from the Viognier in the end. I mean, I love that 90 points Carl's Wine Club, and it's a white. It's a $20 white. I mean, it's hard to find now. It's hard to find. It's 2025, and the price have rised, and like you guys have still managed to keep a very, very competitive price point, and that's why I really like it. That's why I wanted to include it in our pack, because at $20. Bright and crisp white, it's fun, but there's also a little bit of weight in there. So I think to me, this is very versatile on the dinner table. You can do so much thing with that. So it's awesome. Now let's move to the VO Marsanne. I think you're 85-15, 85% versus 15%.
Yeah, just about. The way that it works out is if I have a 7-barrel batch, one of those barrels is Marsanne. And that's usually the ratio that ends up being. So it's like 16.7 or something. But yeah, it's basically around that. In order to have the second varietal, you have to have at least 15%. So Viognier Marsanne, nice, dry, rich one, because we do it in barrel. We do it usually in neutral French oak, but in 2021, I had 2 brand new barriques. So one of them I put Marsanne in, and one of them I put VO in, and I like the Marsanne impact on that. So it got split between the single varietal Marsanne, which I actually have, and the VM. So the new oak components I've brought in to kind of seed our white oak program, because we only had neutrals for the longest time, and a lot of them are from 2010. So eventually they're going to get
you need to bring some new stuff in the program. But it's totally south of Rhone. It's the South Rhone, big, bold fish stew type of white wine that can sustain like these super rich flavor. I mean, I just love that. This wine doesn't have to be super chilled, like super cold. I like it a little bit more closer to room temperature. I feel with the VO Marsanne, if it's too cold, you lose a little too much of this characteristic. Would you agree with that?
And because I got the Marsanne, it came out of the fridge at the winery, and then I drove back with it, and I didn't fridge it when I got home. So I do like it with a chill on it, but I think as it kind of opens up and it comes closer to room temp, it actually it just gets more perfumey. So it doesn't really go like flat, because the nice thing when you chill a wine is that the acid is going to be really prominent. It's going to show more. So if you feel like the whites are lacking acidity and they warm up, they taste really flat. So this kind of passes the test, where it's still enjoyable to drink even when it warms a little bit. And I think my match for VM and Marsanne is like pork rillette or things like that, something that has like that richness to it and a little bit of pepper, because the pepper is kind of a nice part of the Rhones. So
Yeah.
especially with the Marsanne, we find like a white pepper note that we really like. And yeah, anything that'll kind of foil off of that is good. So
Yeah, totally. And let's move straight to the small lot Marsanne because I love that wine. This is definitely the best I know we don't make a ton of Marsanne across Canada. I definitely haven't tasted it better than that. This wine is very fucking good. Oh my God. I kept telling Mira, I give it a 92 points, and I kept telling Mira every time I had a sweat, I'm like, this is fucking good. And she's like, stop saying it. Just put it in your tasting notes.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're lucky to have made one in 2021 because normally if I get any at all as a single varietal, it's like a barrel, right? Which is only 25 or 20-ish cases of wine.
Mm-hmm.
In 2021, we had a pretty healthy Marsanne crop, so we ended up with 5 barrels of single varietal, and then the rest went into VM. So yeah, and it's small lot. Anything that's 100 cases or fewer for us is considered our small lot because all of us, like all of our wines are kind of small batch compared to the broader spectrum of the Okanagan. Like I think we are on the smaller end of small. But yeah, the Marsanne, we came out with 110 cases of this one with some nice structure and that nice heat impact. And as you said, it was a model year for round whites.
And then you managed to keep the alcohol like at 13.5. I mean, for that vintage, I was like, wow, she did a great job. So it's bright, it's structured, the acid is like right in the middle. There's spice, there's texture also. This is fantastic, and this is gonna age well too.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the main challenges with Marsanne in a hot year is that sometimes it can look pretty dark, like it can look kind of orangey. So when I was bottling these in the clear bottles and I had them lined up, I had the VM and the Marsanne, they both look so dark compared to the Miles Edge. And I'm like, oh, that's going to be like really big, or people are going to maybe think that it's kind of gone off. It's just a phenolics thing. Like it's kind of a skin thing. But the other aspect is Marsanne pH is hard to control sometimes. So after fermentation, sometimes your pH just gets really high, and that's where it can kind of get flabby. But again, I had a healthy crop, really big clusters on the Marsanne, and they don't really ripen super evenly. So it did have some acidity just on the shaded fruit. Yeah, it's kind of a funny one. It's kind of an animal of a grape, and it's honestly kind of a bit of a pain because it likes to grow sideways with gigantic leaves and enormous bunches, and it can be a bit of a jungle in there. But it is a fun one to work with when it goes well, like it did this year. So.
Oh, I mean, like this one is absolutely fantastic. Okay, so let's jump on the red because it's almost 6 o'clock. So we're gonna get. So we have to say I have to talk about alluvia versus silica. I mean, this is now, to me, it's one of the most intriguing or one of the most beautiful thing about intersection. It's how you do the exact same way, same winemaking, same picking date, same barrel treatment, same everything. You just pick half of your vineyard is from a different soil. So both, one is silica, the other one is alluvia, and you label the wine differently. And geez, these wines taste completely differently. And like I mentioned in my tasting notes, and we had that chat together as well when I was there. The silica is a little bit more of a new world side, a little bit more juicy, fruity, powerful, higher alcohol, while the alluvia, it's a little bit more on the older world side. A little bit more minerality, a little bit more savoriness, a little bit more of the dark fruit. So very, very intriguing. So that's what, when we talk terroir, so often we throw that T word all over the place. Terroir this, terroir that, blah, blah, blah. This is the true reflection of terroir. I mean, the soil, same thing right there. Two different wines. This is really fascinating to me.
Yeah, so in the pack, we actually will have 3 of our Merlots. So we have our Milepost, which is the one that, it's one of our most popular wines in general. And then these 2, all 3 are going to be from the same vintage. So they're all 2021s. So yeah, I love how they came out. I had some new oak in there. So new French oak, I'll usually do about 30%. That number is kind of like lower on my 2022s. because you have to make a barrel order in March every year before you even have buds on the plant. So I didn't order quite enough oak in 2022, but in 2021 we had basically 3 brand new barrels within a batch of 12 for each of these two. So every time I make a barrel order, Silica and Alluvia are each getting the same barrel from all these different years. So I'll be using like second fills, but because they came from a previous batch of Silica and Alluvia, I've got one of each and they go back into the blend. So the trick is basically not to deviate too much. Like I want to keep them very close in style, but showcase the difference in the fruit, which is dictated by the soil. And as that picture that came up, we have these little soil samples. So if you come and taste at the winery, you get the whole spiel where we take you top to bottom on what theory is behind, separating these two wines. Well, the 3 actually between Milepost and these two.
So Milepost basically is from a different part of the vineyard, right?
Yeah, it's a totally different clone of Merlot.
Yeah.
So we have 2 clones of Merlot, and then the Silica and Alluvia are 1 clone, and they were planted all together. And then diagonally across the block, you can draw a line where we see the shift from a deep sand to that glacial.
I don't know if Mira's still listening to us downstairs. Mira, if you can put the picture of the vineyard. Oh, hey.
Hi.
Hi. If you have the picture of the vineyard still close by, that this one. So you see here that the diagonal line that you see, that's what you're talking about, Mel, right?
Yeah, so the bigger wedge there on the bottom is the Alluvia, and the alluvial soil makes up most of our property. Like the characteristic is common to most of the other varieties that we produce. The Silica is just on that top left side with a deeper sand, and it's isolated to just that little wedge. So what was happening is after the vines had been established for a couple of years, that side started getting very dry, and then the plants were starting to suffer under water stress. All of our water is run from the north side of the property. So all along the same side as the Alluvia, the Riesling, the VO, that's where all our water is coming from. So we had to actually split the irrigation so we could water the Silica separately.
Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah, that's the way we combat. Because like if we were to water for the Silica, the Alluvia would be way too overwatered. And there'd be too much shade and too much greenness and not enough ripening. So
because of the sandy part, right? The water goes straight down, correct?
Yeah, and it also organic matter is lower, so it doesn't hold the water as long either. So
that's fascinating. I never thought of that, but makes total sense.
And I mean, for the listener, I always suggest get a bottle of each, because tasting these 2 bottles side by side and telling your guests this is from the same vineyard, same clone, same winemaking, same old program, same picking date, and these wines are completely different. It is mind-boggling. It's so cool to have that. And at $32, these days you don't get shit for $32 anymore. You can't get anything. And now, I still pull my hair, especially when I tasted the Alluvia. I keep coming back to the Alluvia, not to disrespect the Silica, but the Alluvia is so bang on my taste profile. And I'm like, holy fuck. Like $32 for that Merlot is incredible. And to have Silica and Alluvia tasting side by side is an amazing experience. And when you can throw in there a neutral oak, Milepost, easygoing, fruity. It's kind of a fruit bomb now at 15.5. You're like, holy smoke. Okay. Now I want to get the party going for my guests. Let's get a bottle of Milepost. Everyone's going to start talking louder in a few minutes. But it's a great comp. But Silica and Alluvia are from the same vineyard, same everything. It's such an amazing experience.
Yeah, the Milepost is a fun one to start off with because, it's not meant to be a massive wine. It actually showcases like the more delicate aspect of Merlot, even though from 2021, it's not a delicate wine. It's just that you can get away with not overloading the tannin or overloading the oak. So making a balanced wine in neutral oak is really nice and clear expression. And that's kind of why we're not like super oaking the other two either. Like we don't do a lot of new oak. Even 30% I would say is pretty low for Okanagan wines. And yeah, in a year like that, I think people would want to throw a bit more oak at it for the flavor. But the oak isn't the point, the fruit is. So yeah, we want to showcase the difference between these three and not dress it up too much with the extra.
But I mean, we went so far into the oak is bad, oak is bad. No, oak is good. I enjoy the nice amount of oak, the proper oak in our wine, especially in the big Bordeaux varietals. Anyway, that's my opinion. Okay. Two more wines that I really want to talk about is the Axiom, okay? Because
this blew our mind too. Oh my gosh.
That 2014 Axiom. I know Mira tells me I can't swear that much when I'm live on, like, I can, but fuck me.
No, I've said
that Axiom.
Here it's fine. Just not when we have that TV show because they won't air it.
You gotta be legal drinking age to watch. So
yeah, exactly. That 14 Axiom. Whoa. Okay. And I did some research because I was not in the Canadian wine business. I was more in the international wine business in 15 and 16 when the 2014 vintage were coming out. But from what I'm reading, 14 from the Okanagan, we can expect it's a vintage to produce bold wines. Like that was that type of vintage, correct?
Yeah, 2014. So that was actually, I was in the valley. I was at Burring Owl, and I remember it being nice and warm into the fall, like well into the fall. It was just beautiful sunshine, not a cloud in the sky, like very little rain. So it's an excellent one for Bordeaux Reds in the South Okanagan in particular. And I still have some in my sort of collection from that year because I bought wines from everybody that vintage because it was a real knockout.
Yeah, amazing. And that Axiom, a third. And that was the concept for Axiom all the way to 2020, which we're going to talk about right after. We're going to talk about the 2020 right after here. But so a third of Cab Franc, a third of Merlot, a third of Cab Sauv. That's the composition of the Axiom. And I mean, right now, this is a 10-year-old wine who shows all of his attributes. Just a tiny bit of the tertiary aromas. It's just starting. To me, that wine is hitting. It's really hitting on all cylinder right now. Prime window of drinkability. If you like your wine soft, silky, and mature, that's where it starts. Because it's not over mature. It's not a wine who's like, going here. No. He's just entering his prime window of drinkability. Another 3 to 5 years without the shadow of a doubt. I'm looking at Mira right now. She had a little grin. And I know
remember that you still have this much left in the bottle that you saved for me. So
I sure do. I did. Yeah. And I rated 94 points. And last night, but we're going to California in a week, so we're looking at different stuff for California. And that the fourth night in a row that we keep, and like I should have given more to that. And I feel like I should have given
that
at
is
least
more than 94 points. That's for sure. That is an amazing one.
It's really
we're honored.
It's really starting the year with a big bang because I mean 94 points. We don't give that score to a whole lot of wine, and at this stage, this Axiom 14 is a stunner. We only have allowed to us because you guys barely have any left at the winery. So you and Tony agreed to spare 2 cases. So 24 bottles are available for Carl's Wine Club members this week only. So just letting people know that if you want to treat yourself to start the year, the 2014 Axiom is an experience on its own.
Yeah, it did great in a lot of different competitions. The Judgment of BC was a big Bordeaux red tasting, and it covered like all these different wines from all kinds of places. And we were pretty tall in the standings there too. So the ratio of the fruit, like all the different varieties, it's not like hard and fast that it's always going to be equal parts. But for the first couple of years, and the 14 was the first vintage we made, it was balanced between those. And then as I got into my 2020, I didn't have as much Cab Sauv, so it's more Merlot dominant. So the blend is going to shift depending on what we can get. I do like having Cab dominant ones, and I think it's interesting to see how well it's holding up for 4 nights. Like I'm very impressed that it's still going that way because I agree that it's definitely like approaching peak right now. But there's a lot you can do with it. There's so much you can do with it. So much you can mac it to. It's drinking very classically. So.
Yeah, no, totally. And I mean, moving to the 2020, which I give 93 plus, we had 70 different red blend on the December the 28th, and this one was within the top tier of the selection. And now a little departure from a third when we have 2/3 of Merlot and a third of the split of Cab Franc and Cab Sauv. But when you look at what you guys do, that 2/3 Merlot really bring a sense of place of what you guys do, because that's Merlot, that's what you hang your hat on. So it makes sense for me to see Axiom with a little bit more Merlot dominant. And the 2020 was such a gorgeous vintage. This one is a baby right now. I mean, this, I suggested in my tasting note to put that down for another 2 to 3 years before the little babies start crawling. And from now on, we can see the evolution. But a flagship wine, again, at $52. We had in the Red Blend Marathon wines from $265. And we're talking Canadian wines. We're talking Canadian. Like, I mean, I had wines from $150, $125, like all over the place, like $52 now. We're talking about a really good price for a flagship Bordeaux blend wine. And this Axiom 20, wow, this is yours, 100%. You were there from the beginning. So 14 was not your wine. You didn't make it, but you're the custodian of the 14. But the 20 was your baby. So tell us a little bit about the process.
So originally, actually, I wasn't entirely sure we'd make an Axiom blend, but I had harvested our own Cab Franc as a whole cluster ferment that we knocked the head off the puncheon and just did a whole cluster ferment punch down with the Cab Franc that we could get. And then I took a barrel each of Silica and Alluvia, like my favorites, and then blended those. And because I didn't have quite enough wine to fill the whole barrel of Cab Franc, I ended up topping it with Cab Sauv, which is how that blend ended up happening. So yeah, basically, like as I started balancing it out, whole cluster Cab Franc, you get some tannin from the stems, which is unusual for us, but I think it really adds to the depth of it, and also it there's a little bit of freshness there in its youth right now, so it's going to age much further, I think, because it's got a different like mix of tannins from the like that little whole cluster component. It's like around 24% of it, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. And the thing is, whenever I go and pick a Silica and Alluvia barrel out for Axiom, it's like, well, I kind of also want this to be in Alluvia or in Silica, so it's always hard to choose. But what I aim for normally is within one barrel. If I would bottle that barrel by itself, usually that's a good indication. It's good for this blend because it can stand alone. So yeah.
So Mira, now we have some people from Ontario who are listening to the show that are coming in February, early March, and they're planning to bring 6 people to go to see you at the winery.
Yes. So you guys are open. You guys are open in the off season, right?
Yeah, with kind of limited hours. And I think, the safest thing to do is just email or call us, and we can set up like a specific time for the off season anyway. And otherwise the weekends are usually pretty safe. Anywhere between Friday and Sunday is usually pretty safe. But yeah, if it's during the week, we might just have to, I'm usually there during the week, so.
Nice.
That's pretty easy for us to work around, but easiest way is the info at XWine is our general inquiries. So, you can email us there or anything online, like, our phone numbers, everything's there.
Info at xwine.ca, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and we can also do the middleman with the members as well if we connect with you, and also put you in connection.
Basically, my cell number is on the front door too. So if I'm not physically at the building, like if I'm just out in the vineyard pruning or something, which is likely what we'll get started on doing pretty soon, then I'm not too far away. So
that's awesome.
Bill, don't miss the Silica and the Alluvia side by side. Bill, don't miss that. And maybe request maybe a pour of the Axiom 2014.
Yeah. I don't know if we'll have. I don't know if we'll have 14 open, but we do have our new Cab Franc. So
yes. Oh yeah. I know. You give me a bottle. I can't. We tasted it together. So really cool as well. That's awesome. Mel, thanks for joining me, man. That's awesome. Great talk. Great and great selection. And I didn't even talk about the Appassimento 2013 that we have on the lineup, and also the Riesling 21, which is 14.5%, so well balanced. By the way, we opened a 2016 during Christmas season.
It was live, actually. I blind tasted you on it on this show, and you were like, "What is this? This is amazing!"
So anyway, so just to say that the Riesling and Intersection can age very well. So yeah, it's all online. It's all on our page. Carl's Wine Club Intersection this week. $157 for the 6-bottle 2021 vintage pack. And we have 4 outstanding a bonus pick with the 2014 Axiom, 2013 Appassimento, 2020 Axiom, and also the small lot Marsanne as well. So Mel, thank you. Thank you. We'll be in touch with a bunch of orders for you in the next couple of days. Thank you very much, Mel.
Oh, there's not much
Absolutely, yeah. I'm super happy that we're doing this pack with you guys. So I'm looking forward to, honestly, like I kind of want to do another Q&A kind of thing, probably on our Instagram at some point. I don't know. I might put out a Google form, and if people want like to get really into the technical stuff, they can always ask. That's one of the things we love to talk about, is all of like the deep details. So yeah.
I love that, Mel. I love that. This is why we love Intersection, because you and Tony are always so like welcoming, and there's never a question that I've asked that I regret asking, because you just have such a wealth of knowledge to share. It's amazing. So thank you so much.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. So yeah, and as I said, I look forward to it. And yeah, it's what I see the pop up. It's what us wine geeks do, and it's true.
It is.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mel. You have a good one.
Okay. Yeah. You have a good night. Happy Wine Wednesday.
Thank you.
Again.
Okay.
Thank you. That's crazy how times fly, Mira. And you didn't even come upstairs to get your 2014 Axiom.
Oh, yes.
I'll bring it to you, because I have to run to go pick up our theater kid. Our oldest is in theater, and it has to switch home.
You are right.
So one play to another. He's playing in Penticton tonight. I really have to run and finish that.
Well, you know what? I can run, and you can finish up the show. Why don't we do that?
How about we do that?
It was great to see all wine lovers. We'll see what Carl has to say here. But I did, just before I go, I will reveal your blind tasting wine. Are you ready?
Okay, you go ahead.
At the beginning there, you tasted a Viognier, because Mel makes amazing Viognier at Intersection. I thought it might be interesting. It's a totally different.
That's the Niagara College. Yeah, this is really good. I was about it more and more the show was going on, more as this wine is opening. Look, my glass is almost empty.
Yeah,
and darn it.
This
is a 91 point, 90 plus, 91. This is really good. I love the texture. And like I said, there's a burst of white flower and spice up after the mid palate. Sweet lemon, jasmine. I mean, I like that. I really like that.
I saw Mel's comment too in the chat. I wish she was still here while we were talking about this, because you know what? She went to Niagara College. It's kind of full circle. Full circle. There you go. Well, I am going to zip out to get our kid, and I hope you guys have a wonderful night. Cheers, guys.
Thank you, Mira. Thank you. It was an awesome interview with Mel Smits, the winemaker at Intersection. Winemaker, vineyard manager. I mean, she do everything there. She's awesome. She has a wealth of knowledge. She's really cool. And I love, again, tasting the Alluvia and the Silica side by side. These two Merlot from the same vineyard. Same oak treatment, same picking date, same winemaking, same everything, and just comes from a different part of the vineyard and just completely different. Wow, that is awesome. So yeah, really great experience. So rockstar wine for me with this week. The wine that you see in a fire emoji on the website is the Marsanne small lot really, really cool white. It is really worth trying and very well priced. The Axiom 2020, the Axiom 2014 is the bomb at the moment. Incredible wine. And the Merlot unfiltered Alluvia 2021. That's the two pair, right? The Silica on one side, the Alluvia on the other. I have a soft spot for the Alluvia. I gave it 93 plus point, a $32 Merlot, which is incredible price for the quality, 93 plus points. So here we are. I mean, what a great show. It went very fast. You tell me, put in the comments what is in your glass tonight. And if you had a standout wine that you tasted over the weekend, I want to know which great wine you tasted over the weekend. I mean, on our side, I opened, okay, I'll be honest with you. I opened a Chardonnay from Leaning Post this weekend, which was phenomenal again, every time that I opened a Leaning Post Chardonnay was the Grimsby Hillside Chardonnay. What a treat again. So, yeah. And what is the other wine? Oh, I mean, I sipped on the Alluvia and the Axiom because we were doing tasting notes. Daryl said he had a Diet Coke. Okay, fair enough, Daryl. Fair enough. You had a great run during Christmas. That's no issue right there. That is awesome. Jen Valerie, Jen says she had the Bellaterra Members Red. Yeah, I love that. I love that. A wine which is fairly similar than the Burnship Bay Reserve Red in terms of blend and in terms of texture and delivery, which is one of our very, very favorite wine, which has made our top 10 wine of the year list as our top value wine last year. So Jen, that Bellaterra Members Red, same profile. I know, and the bottle is freaking amazing. Freaking fantastic. So yeah, here we are. Mel says Alluvia and Silica. I brought home the tasting room bottle from the weekend. So that's what Mel sipped on this weekend. That is amazing. Rob Yoneda had the Black Market Secret Society Red. Rob, which vintage did you have? Did you have the 20, the 21, or the 22? So this is a great point here. Rob Yoneda says he's having the Black Market Secret Society Red. I have a soft spot. I have a soft spot on the 22 vintage. Man, that I like that 2022 Secret Society Red. Awesome. Stacy and Jeff, they have a confession. They drink the non-Canadian wine. What? No, that's all good. We need to drink some international wine. We need to. You know why? It brings us back to what we do here in Canada, and we appreciate so much. Let's dispel those myths, right? I mean, they say, or here, people in Canada, Canadian ones, or here in Canada, our wines are overpriced, or we can't age Canadian wines. Sorry, we just saw everything here with the Axiom 14, how all wine can age. We can't ripen the big reds. I don't think so. Again, Axiom 14, right? How ripe. So these are all the myths that older generation carry with them, saying that Canadian wines are not good enough. So that's what we do, right? We showcase the incredible quality and the incredible level of Canadian wines. That's what we make across the country. And when you go to international wines, it makes you realize how amazing our wines are. So this is really, really cool. Rob had the 21 that he picked up last year. CHV from Bill. CHV from you had, let me check here. CHV Cab Merlot from Erie North Shore. I mean, Erie North Shore, it's the appellation of our next feature winery, Bill. Awesome timing. In 2 weeks, we're featuring Moose-Dre Vineyard from Lake Erie North Shore, which I'm so excited about. I'm telling you guys, we're starting 2025 on a bang. After intersection, we're going to do Moose-Dre. But this week again, okay, before I hang it up, and I say goodbye for the rest of the week. This week, it's Intersection Week. Go on Facebook on our webpage for more information. But we have the 6-bottle Discovery Pack, which is 6 bottles of the 2021 vintage from Intersection, which they are located on the Golden Mile Slope in Oliver, which is the wine capital of Canada. 6 bottles, 3 whites and 3 reds. The 3 whites are the 2021 Riesling, the 2021 Viognier Marsanne, and the 2021 Miles Edge, which is the blend of Riesling, Viognier, and Pinot Blanc. The 3 reds are the Milepost, the Alluvia, and the Silica, all Merlot. The Silica and Alluvia made the same way from the same vintage, and the Milepost is the neutral oak, a little bit more approachable, easy drinking, more entry level. So 3 Merlot and 3 whites. Our 4 bonus options this week are world class, starting with the 94 points Axiom blend of Cap Franc, Merlot, and Cap Sauv, and the 2020 Axiom, which is the most recent brother of the 14 Axiom, which this one is more dominant Merlot. I give it a 93 plus points. We also have the small lot Marsanne, 92 points, Carl's Wine Club, and a 2013 Appassimento Merlot. So here we go. Here we are for our feature with Intersection. It goes on until Sunday night. So stay tuned. We're going to promote and we're going to talk about more specific wine now for the rest of the week. We're going to post about it, give you more information, send you more email about it. So, but keep in mind, there's only 24 bottles of the 2014 Axiom. So on that, I wish you all a great rest of your Wednesday, and we'll chat with you again soon. Canadian wine lovers, Carl's Wine Club members, see you next time.